The final Monday for the month of September. How about that? This is Section 1904. I'm Darren Smith. He's John Gennaro. Good to be with you. It is a free episode that I think is also streaming live someplace. I'm not exactly clear on that. I did put on a better shirt than I was wearing 5 minutes ago, though, just in case. That was our situation. It is a Monday. That means that it's the weekend recap. We have mostly Padre subject matter here, although we're going to be spending a ton of time Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for sure talking about the Padres. You could probably expect some podcasts before the games, after the games, content, etc. It's a great time to become a subscriber to Section 1904. As a matter of fact, and John can fill you in on these details, in addition to everything else that you get for as little as $5 a month, if you want to subscribe to Section 1904, this week, you might even get a trial subscription where you get access. You want plenty of Padre stuff? We got plenty of Padre stuff for you, John. Tell everybody why this is perhaps the perfect time to go a little deeper with us here on Section 1904.
Well, we know that there's a lot of interest this time of year. It's not just the diehards; it's also the people that have been like, kind of following the team, and now the playoffs are here, and they want more information on the Padres. Maybe they want more information on San Diego FC, whose playoffs start in a couple weeks. So we've started to see more subscriptions roll in, but we want to get as many people in the section as humanly possible. So I'll post something on the site later. We haven't really talked about it, but I think what we're going to do is just extend the usual 5-day trial period that you get normally. If you sign up for Section 1904 normally, you get 5 days to basically decide if you want to continue with us or not. I think we're just going to extend that out to like 30 days for this week. And that way, everyone who signs up can be with us through an entire potentially Padres playoff run, the beginning of the San Diego FC venture into the MLS playoffs, all of that, just trying to get as many people in as possible. But there'll be details on the website a little bit later today.
John, that would be the 2025 Audi MLS Cup playoffs, just for your point of reference there.
Okay, now I know.
Got to get that right. We have people that are going to be joining us from Chicago. I am very tempted. I was offered tickets literally on Sunday night to Padres Cubs, which did have me sniffing around on Travelocity. I called my cousin who lives in Chicago, and I cleared the way perhaps for a couch crash. If that were the case, I'm like a 52-year-old man. Hey, man, can I crash on your couch for a little while? But that might be what it takes. I don't know that I saw any last-minute flights that were that appealing to me. Again, I'm sort of thinking to myself, or what are you worried about here? You can go. Why don't I just use the Section 1904 company card so that I can go to Chicago? But I was offered some tickets, and I will admit, this is tempting. It is very tempting. I am going to give it another look when we're done here later on today. But even if I don't make it to Chicago, we're still going to be chatting with people who are there professionally, who are there for professional purposes covering Padres and Cubs. So we'll share some of those details with you as the week unfolds. But it's here. I mean, this is it. Like, the playoffs are starting tomorrow at 12 noon. We're recording Monday morning at about 8:45. And, we're just a little bit more than 24 hours away. Boy, between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs, I don't remember it feeling like this quick of a turnaround in years past, but maybe I'm just misremembering it. It's quick, though. Like, tomorrow at this time, players are going to be at the field. They're going to be at Wrigley Field getting ready for game one of the NL wildcard.
Yeah, game one starts in 27 hours from right this second, and they were playing baseball yesterday afternoon. So yeah, that's a hell of a turnaround. San Diego to Chicago, it's not the longest flight possible, but it's not a short one. So yeah, it's tough. Like that's the thing about these wild card series, especially now that you get 0 home games. They are so tough to win. And we're gonna get into it, I'm sure, multiple times over the next day or two. But this Padres team, we've been trying to figure out like how to wrap our hands around this Padres team all year long. They won 90 games. And yet we look back at this season and go like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a very good team. It doesn't feel like they figured out who they should be, who they want to be, anything like that. And I think the big thing is that almost every opportunity they've had to do something big, they've missed. Like, hey, this is the opportunity to you're tied with the Dodgers for first place in the NL West. This is your opportunity. You can take the division, they blow it. Okay, you can catch the Cubs and you can steal home field advantage, the wild card. Nope, can't do that either. And so I think there's a lot of people who are going into this series going, Padres are not a very good or road team. The Cubs are a very good home team. The Padres have to travel. The Cubs don't. And the Padres have been, for lack of a better phrase, and I actually don't know that this one is completely accurate, letting us down for good portions of this season. And I think there are people who are going into this thinking they're just going to let us down again. Now, I can tell you they've won 7 of their last 8 games. I don't know how hard the Brewers or the Diamondbacks were playing, but the Padres do feel a little bit like they have some momentum. They just scored 24 runs over their last 3 games. There's reasons to believe, but this team has also made it somewhat difficult to believe in them, despite the fact they won 90 freaking games in back-to-back seasons for, I think, the first time in franchise history.
Right. Back-to-back playoffs, second time franchise history, back-to-back 90-win seasons. It's been pointed out Mike Schilt wins 90 games. I mean, now listen, all of these reporters all said the same thing from the field in their final stand-up of 2025. They all said the same exact thing. So, you've heard this a million times. You don't need to subscribe to this podcast to hear us regurgitate the same sort of fluff that you're hearing in a lot of other places. I don't mean that to sound like pejorative. It's just sort of the same stuff. I guess my question would be, are you optimistic or pessimistic? Or is it too early? Are you too close to the end of the regular season and the optimism of the playoffs, right? Oh, this is a new season and wipe away whatever it was that just happened. And Manny Machado's like, his August and September's, they're in the rear view now. All that matters, although I guess you don't really want to use Manny's playoff performance as any sort of reference point if history has told us anything about Manny in the playoffs. But, do you find yourself just more optimistic, pessimistic, or somewhere even keeled about the Padres' opportunities, not just in the big picture, but specifically the series against the Cubs?
I will answer, but then I'm going to ask you to answer the same question because it's a tough one, and it gets into your very personal how do you digest sports and these types of transitions from like regular season team to playoff where anyone can win. The answer is I'm going to be pessimistic today. And this is not like a choice. I know myself. I'm going to be pessimistic today. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and go, I mean, they could hit home runs in Chicago, and the pitching is not. We got the better bullpen, and Tatis is getting hot, and Merrill's hot, and Rise is hot. And they could do it. They could do it. All they got to do is win game 1, and then they're in the driver's seat, even if they don't have home game. So I'll talk myself into it tomorrow. I'll be really optimistic tomorrow. Today, I'm fearful.
You're not allowing yourself to feel optimistic. You don't want to be hurt, is what I'm hearing here. You don't want to allow yourself to believe because it's the hope that kills you.
Oh no, I'll totally let myself get hurt tomorrow. But today, today is
But
like
for today, you're still in, let me recap the season mode. And the season was kind of a
yes,
grind where even the
yes,
wins didn't feel
yes.
euphoric. They felt like more relief than they did actually happiness.
Right. But let me wake up tomorrow morning and dream about the Padres putting 8 runs on the Cubs in game 1 and what that could do, and then be like, well, once they get rolling and then we get home playoff games and anything can happen. Like I'll be that guy tomorrow. But today I'm chewing on this season going like there's just something about this team that felt like it wasn't magical, right? Like I asked you
Mhm.
months ago, like, do you know a magical season is happening when it's happening, or do you have to wait for the end? I think this was early in the season when it felt like it was a little bit of a magical season and then it fell off. And I think the answer is like, no, you kind of have to wait and feel it out and reflect on it after the fact. But right now, it's hard for me to look at this season as anything more than like, oh, like I'm glad they won 90 games, but like that was not a very enjoyable season at all.
Yeah, and so I will, I guess, answer. I like you have felt, even I'll use the same word. I'm kind of glad that the regular season is over. You know what I mean? Like I just I'm ready for new energy, and I think the playoffs provide new energy. But I
Yeah.
I do find myself, John. There's just a percentage of me, and it's a small percentage. It's a minority percentage that thinks, for as much as we could bellyache and nitpick a 90-win season, and we've done plenty of that, and so have plenty of people. One of the benefits of being a subscriber to Section 1904 is we've created a Discord channel. And like every night, there's a theme seemingly throughout the Discord channel on the Padres tab, which is, this manager ain't it, and some of these players ain't it. And, it's probably not too dissimilar from other places, if you're engaged in Padre community. So wherever it might be, this is just our community, which is what Section 1904 is.
Yeah.
But I will say, I do find myself thinking, um, I'm not sure where all of this is going in the future, talking about the Padres organization. And as I've alluded to, and I don't quite have a grasp on details, but I do sense, that change is out there on the horizon. And I think I'm finding myself wondering. I don't want to just think that it is the Padres' birthright to go to the playoffs and win and go 4 times in 6 years in back-to-back seasons, because I'm not so sure where this is all heading with regards to ownership and some front office stuff, and even we'll get into what the future looks like in the broadcast booth, right? So it just like there's just I don't want to say like storm clouds out there on the horizon. I'm just trying to come up with a metaphor, but it does feel like beyond what it is that's right in front of us, which is 2, maybe 3 games in Chicago. And if you win that, you go up the road to Milwaukee and you play the Brewers in a best-of-5 series in the NLDS. It does feel like there is like an overarching theme that things might be a little they're going to be different in the future, and that's not going to necessarily guarantee that the Padres are going to find themselves in a position where 90 games, even through a grind and in a relief of a season, is something that I don't know that I will be betting on as we approach the start of next season. Now, again, this is like well ahead, but I do, what I'm saying is like I'm finding myself appreciating this for what it is and enjoying it, because it's not quite clear. It's a little fuzzy to me where this is all heading down the road.
So, 2 things. One, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out you didn't answer the question about if you're optimistic or pessimistic, but that's fine. We get into that in a second. The other one is I
I
said
think I'm
this.
optimistic because I want to see, probably because I'm hopeful that I can
Okay.
enjoy this run, because I'm again, it's unclear to me that this is going to be set up for this kind of success next year.
Okay. And that's a good answer. And that brings me back to the point I was going to make, which I think is a point I made a while back, where I said that this could be I compared it to Dave Roberts with the Dodgers last year situation for AJ Preller, where they lose to the Cubs. I think there's a chance Preller's out. If they lose to the Brewers, I think there's a chance Preller's out. They beat the Cubs. If they beat the Brewers, if they go to the NLCS or God forbid further than that, I think it's going to be really hard to get rid of AJ Preller or clear out anyone else from the front office, because at that point, your team, the season is a success. Like no matter how we feel about it, if they win 90 games and make it at least to the last 2 in the National League, that is a success. And I don't think anyone can convince the fan base, including us, differently. And I think back, there's probably a lot more examples if I had thought about this more. But Dave Roberts is not the only example of like someone who came into the playoffs going like, I need to go deep in this or I'm going to lose my job. Like, if I remember correctly, that was kind of where like Tito Francona was with the Red Sox before he took them to win the World Series. And then it was like, well, he's a legend now. Can't fire him. He's Tito. So, sometimes this type of there's trouble on the horizon ends up being the narrative push that the team needs to actually like get further than it's gotten in the past.
That's fair. There's a flip side of that coin, though.
For sure.
Who's to say that we're talking about a decision that is exclusively the decision of the organization?
As opposed to
Who's to say that maybe I'll give you an example, right? You know the dynamic at iHeartRadio pretty well. When I got hired there, the market manager was a different person. The market manager is the person who oversees all the radio stations. Her name was Melissa Forrest, and she had a vision for what she thought the iHeart radio stations should look like in the future. This was when I got there in 2019. The regional manager was a guy named Rob Scorpio, and he had a vision for the way certain things were going to look. And then my program director was a guy named Brian Long. By the end of my time at iHeart, John, all 3 of those people had left. All 3 of those people had gone. And I was left going, what happened to that shared vision? What happened to that shared vision? What happened to the plan when I was talking about coming in here and it was going to be, ABC. These are the things that we are going to do. That was Melissa to Rob to Brian. And then all of a sudden, there was no Melissa and there was no Rob and there was no Brian. And it was easy for me to sit at the end of that run and go, like, I don't, it's nothing. I'm not saying these are bad people, but these are not the people that I agreed to sign up for. And now apply that to AJ Preller. AJ Preller, you saw that interview that Marty did with him from the dugout over the weekend. And Marty, of course, is going to ask the question about an extension because everybody assumes that AJ Preller would run through a wall to just sign an extension. But it is not the same organization that AJ Preller signed on with. It is not Ron Fowler and Peter Seidler. It is now somebody named John Seidler, and it is Eric Rupner who has more power. This isn't 50-50 between Eric Rupner and AJ Preller, the way it was presented to us via Peter Seidler for many, many years. We've gone back to the season ticket holder, that letter that was sent out that people thought was not a big deal. So what I would say is, how do we know that AJ Preller does want to stay here? How do we know that this is the thing that he signed up for and that maybe this isn't his final trip around the universe as the Padres general manager? Maybe he looks around, he's like, same way I looked around. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not the shared vision that I had, which made it easy for me, which made it a lot easier for me to leave because, I felt like, our ambitions aren't the same. And how do we know that there isn't a scenario out there, especially with a work stoppage looming around the corner, that this isn't perhaps a fork in the road where it is a natural time for people to go their separate ways?
We don't. I laugh because I tend to think of other fans, the ones that don't pay as close of attention as us, or sometimes fail to look at things from multiple perspectives, as being the ones who are always like, "Oh, this guy's on the Padres, therefore he wants to be on the Padres forever." AJ
Right.
Preller is the head of the Padres. Why would he ever want to leave the Padres? And that is not a question that I've ever asked myself. And you just answered it anyway. And immediately my brain started going, you know, I could see like 3 or 4 teams that would offer him a job this offseason if the Padres don't give him an extension. That would be interesting places for him to go. And it makes narrative sense too. I went there to work with Peter. I loved working with Peter. Peter wasn't there. It didn't feel the same. I'm ready for a new challenge.
And do
Right?
you think that the Padres would stop him? Do you think, knowing what we all know,
No,
even on
God,
the surface level, that Eric
no.
Rupner would be like, absolutely not. We cannot let this. No, I mean, I don't. Now, again, this isn't. I mean, we don't know. Like you said, maybe you go on this incredible run, and he's like, God, I got to finish the job, man. I've got to finish the job. Like I am determined to finish the job, and I love it here. And by all accounts, Preller does love living in San Diego. I know him a little bit. I think he really does. I am just wondering as we get underway, and I don't want this to become the focal point of today's episode or even the theme, but I'm struggling just to not think that how massive it could be that there. I just think there's a really. Let me just sum this up. I just think, John, there's a really, really good chance that AJ Preller, no matter what it is that happens this postseason, that this is it. That this is going to be it for him in some capacity. I'm not reporting it. Yes, I've heard a couple of things that are influencing my opinion. I am not looking for clicks. This isn't clickbait. I just think, for me, it sounds like nobody's told me that he's going to go, but it sort of feels like maybe, there is a really, really a better chance than a lot of people realize that regardless of result, that this is going to be that we're at the end of the road with AJ Preller and the Padres. And it's not necessarily because it's the Dave Roberts situation from last year. Dave desperately wanted to stay as the Dodgers manager, but they were that close. They were an inning away from firing Dave and bringing Skip Schumacher in to be the manager of the Dodgers. Everybody around baseball knew it then, and everybody around baseball knows it today. And they put up, and he got rewarded for it. I don't know that that's exactly the scenario that's in place here because of the dynamic. Because, like I said, I just going back, and you can apply it to whatever work environment people have been in their lives. It's just not the same gig, like it's just not. And I do think like there is that lurking around out there, in what's expected to be an off season, a pretty significant change, and unfortunately a work stoppage hanging around as well. That this might be a natural exit point, but again, hopefully that's not something we'd talk about until the end of October or maybe the beginning of November.
Now you got me freaked out, Darren. How can I
Well, see,
go on
all of a
talking
sudden
about
now
other
it's so
things?
easy to be like, well, this guy isn't any good. We should bring somebody else to come in
Well,
here. And it's like, well, maybe it's not as easy as we all think.
and I'm also thinking about like what I've heard about Preller is that like he has his group of front office guys, right? His scouts and his assistants and whatever. And my understanding is like they kind of consider themselves a team together. So if he were to leave and go to another Major League Baseball team, my guess is a lot, if not all of them, would go with him. At which point, like, even if you wanted to go, all right, it's going to be Mark Loretta or Jake Peavy, like, they don't have a whole front office worth of guys they can bring in. It's kind of like starting over. And so, yeah, that's
Yeah,
I'll
I don't
have a
know. I mean, I don't know about that. The assistant general manager is a guy named Josh Stein. Josh Stein's a San Diegan. I mean,
that's
Josh
true.
Stein
He's
is a
been here.
lifelong San
He's been here
Diegan.
forever, right?
But you're bringing up the interesting points, and this is a good exercise for people too. Mark Loretta. Do you know what Mark Loretta's title is?
Assistant to the CEO or something.
Assistant to the CEO. Do you know what
Okay.
Jake Peavy's title is?
Assistant to the CEO.
Assistant to the CEO. How many CEOs do you know around Major League Baseball that have two popular former players who are assistants to the CEO? Like, why are those guys assistants to the CEOs and not assistants to the general managers or the president of baseball operations?
That's a
So,
great question.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can look around through all the front office Rolodexes around Major League Baseball. You can go to every website if you want. I mean, I started this a couple of weeks ago and I gave up on it after like 3 teams. But I mean, how many CEOs have sort of insulated themselves with a couple of guys that report directly to them, that don't report to the president of baseball operations, but report directly to them, to the CEO of the team? I mean, maybe it's more popular than I would realize. Like I said, I'm not going to spend my time going to every single website of Major League Baseball or thumbing through every single media guide. But, I don't know. I don't know too many of them. So I don't know. I think it's interesting also that there is this piece from Dennis Lin and Britt Giroli on The Athletic today. One of the benefits of being a paid subscriber to Section 1904 is John will send you what's called the front row seat. This is a daily newsletter, Monday through Friday. In it, he links up a bunch of stories he thinks that are important for you as a sports fan, not just a Padre fan, not just a San Diego State fan, not just a San Diego sports fan, but a lot of other stories. And all of a sudden it's like, there's a really lengthy piece about AJ Preller and some of his picadillos, about how he puts ketchup on his red meat, something, John, I have seen in person with my own 2 eyes, having had dinner with AJ Preller once upon a time in Peoria, Arizona. I was warned that he did this and didn't believe it. And then I saw it with my own 2 eyes. So now we're starting to see a little bit of that. And, I just think, again, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm not saying that I think it's more likely to happen, but I think there's a real chance that we are looking at, a different looking Padres, which is back to the original point, which is, so I'm going to enjoy this because I don't know where this thing is heading in the future. And I don't know that 90 wins is guaranteed. And I don't know that bringing in some of the players that the Padres have brought in, I don't know that this is going to look exactly the same, and that is going to continue along the same line of success that we've seen. For whatever it is that we want to point out about Preller and his inability to, find consistency with the manager's office or be a micromanager or trading away the farm year after year after year. You can't argue with the positions that they put themselves in heading into some of these postseasons, and it's just like I said, it's a little fuzzy where this is going to go after the season ends, whenever it ends.
Whenever it ends. Man, we've gone down such a side path here, but I just want to wrap a bow on this before I forget. I really want to step in it, Darren, in case Mark Loretta or Jake Peavy ends up the next GM of the San Diego Padres. There are a number of special assistants to the general manager. They are mostly people whose names I don't know, like David Post and James Keller. There's also special assistants to baseball operations like Alan Craig and AJ Ellis and Craig Stammen, Scott Service. I know those names. senior advisor for baseball operations, the brothers Hoffman, both of them. So they have a number of these guys. It actually makes me wonder if Loretta and Peavy don't have the chops or availability to play a role as an assistant to baseball operations or the front office. And instead, Eric Grupner was like, well, we can use you for marketing purposes. You can be my assistant over here. And they're not actually a part of the baseball brain trust, which would make some sense based on
I
some of
think that
the.
they linger around a little bit.
Okay.
I think that they're not just there to go open a little league field.
Okay. Fair enough. I
Yeah.
I will say that, like, Jake Peavy is earning a little bit of a reputation for making predictions that never come true, and that's you can do that if you're the marketing guy, but if you're going to be a front office guy at some point, like, calm down with the predictions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they've they report back to the CEO, which
Do you think they have like quarterly meetings where, like, in this quarter, this is what you've accomplished, and here's what we'd like to see? Do you think like he's their boss?
do you think maybe? I mean, do you think maybe that creates a little bit of insecurity at times when somebody comes into I don't know I mean into one of your front office meetings and then he goes right back down the hall to the CEO of the team. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a problem that you just
Yeah,
laid out.
I mean it's probably not too dissimilar than when AJ Preller had coaches that were reporting direct to him, including one of the coaches that's on the Cubs, by the way, when he would have Ryan Flaherty that would go back and report direct to him, and you might wonder how would that make Bob Melvin feel.
Not
Right?
great.
So it's just been like, I don't know, man. There's times where you're like, this place is a snake pit. like it really is. It's like Westeros sometimes at Petco Park. You just, well, like, they succeed sometimes in spite of themselves. All right. Anyhow, we'll talk a little bit about the Cubs in great detail coming up tomorrow. How are you feeling? Are you inspired because Fernando Tatis Jr. came back from COVID and hit a grand slam and then followed it up with another home run? Do you think whatever it was that happened, whatever treatment he received while he had COVID, has it put a little bit of fuel injector into his seemingly empty tank of gas that is now going to propel him into all sorts of postseason heights and success, John?
Yes, actually. Now you have me wondering. Everything now is a catch-22 in my head because you've put my brain into Westeros. But are players allowed to take steroids? Like, I don't mean performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, like, the steroids that you get if you go to the doctor and you're a little under the weather, and they're like, well, antibiotics won't help, but these steroids will help you. Do you think he got those types of steroids? Because sometimes those make you feel really good for a couple days.
Well, I hope if he did, he got his TUE, his temporary usage exemption.
Okay.
So that just in case he's asked to piss in a cup here, it's not going to raise any flags around Major League Baseball, because that sort of stuff happens too. That's the secret. You can take this stuff if you can find a doctor that will sign off for it. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it was just a couple of days and it got him an opportunity to refocus. Maybe he felt like, I missed out on that celebration. So now I've got to show up and I've got to do something because I want to be celebrated as well. Whatever. And I'm tired of psychoanalyzing Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm just glad to see him hitting home runs again.
Same.
Hopefully that's a good sign
Yeah.
for a couple of day games in Chicago. What did you think of the start times? 12:08, both on Tuesday, Wednesday, to be determined if there is a game, 3 on Thursday.
What did I think of the times, Darren? I'm an old man who goes to bed early like you. I loved it. I was thrilled. I was like, man, we're gonna be done doing post game shows. It's not even gonna be time for dinner. It's fantastic.
I'm with you. Day games at Wrigley. I mean, assuming
Oh,
that there's no bad weather, I think a
best.
day game at Wrigley, the visual, like seeing Manny Machado wearing the sunglasses, like I'm down for that. Like,
Lots of eye
will
black.
sign up
Jackson
for
Merrill
that.
just covered in eye black.
Covered in eye black. Absolutely. Guys getting dirty middle of the day, have a little bit of a throwback sense to it. I know Manny doesn't seem to get wrapped up in this sort of stuff about being in a historic venue, and Manny doesn't want to talk about motivation or whatever words it was that confused him in yesterday's press session, but still just wants to play baseball. That's fine. Manny could go out there. He could just play some baseball. I'm sure you saw the video clip that I'm referencing.
I did, and I was actually. It seemed like you were going to that same place. It made me at the end of it go like, "Do we need to talk to Manny?" Like, it seems like he'd be a lot happier if we just left him alone. Like, there was.
This is why I don't like reporters. You guys and your words.
Right. It's not exactly the same, but it reminded me of like a decade ago. You would know more about this than me, maybe 2 decades ago, when the media was just kind of like, All right, I think we can leave Khalil Green alone. Like
Right.
we're not gonna get any good quotes from him. He's not mean spirited. He doesn't want the camera and the microphone in front of his face. Like just leave him alone unless we really need to talk to him about something. We'll leave him alone. Like maybe do that with Manny.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's giving you every indication, but it's not going to stop anybody. He's the biggest presence in the clubhouse. Where
He
else do
wants
we
to
come up with
talk.
these memes like we had for Manny with the bottle of Clase Azul and the sunglasses on, dancing shirtlessly inside of the Padre clubhouse? That meme's been passed around 1,000,001 times over the weekend. So you don't get that if you don't point a camera at Manny, despite his complete contempt for everybody who does this. I mean, it's just I'm glad I'm not one of them, and I do ask myself that why do they bother? But it is because it's fucking Manny Machado, as he would say himself. I am Manny fucking Machado. So you cannot ignore this presence, especially at a time like this where he's shown some signs of life. You could say it's the final game of the regular season. What difference does it make? But better than the alternative, which is just crossing your fingers and hoping that a version of Manny Machado from earlier on this season arrives at Wrigley Field and performs in the playoffs, which is not something, John, that he has historically done. But I know I roll my eyes and I know it bothers people. And Marty makes a joke of it and will say things like, oh, we know better to ask him about what was the word that he got caught up on yesterday? Was it motivation or something?
I
You
think
know,
so.
is there
I was
extra
watching it this
motivation?
morning. I should know, but I
Yeah.
don't remember
I mean, she
exactly.
sort of just, I think it was AJ Cassavell, and it just
Oh,
sort of stops
urgency.
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 Yeah. He's like, that's why I don't like reporters. Like, okay, that's why you don't. Anyhow,
Got to the
just
bottom of that one. Why he doesn't like
whatever.
reporters.
I'm fine with red ass Manny if he goes out there and hits 2 home runs on Tuesday. Be as
It
red assed as you want to be, Manny, and you can pick apart whatever word it is that AJ Cassavell uses, or Derek Togerson, or Marty Caswell, or anybody else. Urgency.
it
You
is
just play baseball.
It is funny though, because like Manny holds himself up like he's something of a someone who appreciates the history of baseball, someone who watched it as a kid, paid attention to it. He knows his elders, et cetera, respects them, all that. I know it's been a while since Barry Bonds has been in baseball, and we can still talk about Barry Bonds as, if not the greatest baseball player of all time, definitely in the top 5 greatest baseball players of all time. And this is how he acted. And it was a big reason why the media hated Barry. The media still hates Barry. And a lot of fans just found him like distasteful, just not a person that they could root for, wear the jersey of, whatever, no matter how many home runs he would hit or how many gold gloves he would have or how many stolen bases. Because they were like, he's just a jerk all the time to everyone. And it's you'd think he would realize that that's probably gonna lose him some fans, but maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he doesn't care.
I don't think so. I also think he's a bit of a made man when it comes to the Padres,
Yeah,
and
I
that
know.
nobody's going to sit around other than a handful of nerds and complain because Manny, objects to the word motivation or urgency or whatever. And plus Manny's probably like, deep down, I think he is probably aware of some of this stuff. And what's he supposed to say? Yes, like there's a ton of urgency here because guess what? We've got a bunch of free agents on this team, and I don't know what the future of the organization is going to look like. And I'm still in the prime window of my career. And if I can't figure out a way to win it now, when can I win it? I don't know. He doesn't seem ever really to get wrapped up and consumed by that sort of thing. For Manny, it's always like, hey, just play baseball. And I think at times maybe that's the right approach to have. Like you just play baseball. You just go out there, you just play baseball. And maybe that's an approach that's got him on a Hall of Fame trajectory and postseason games are small sample size situations. And that's how Manny views it. And Manny knows for right or for wrong that he's probably going to be judged by the entirety of his career, not necessarily what it is that he does in a handful of postseason series. So why put extra urgency or extra pressure on himself? Just go to Chicago. It's just like, I don't care where it is. It's just another place. It's what he said. I don't worry about motivation. I don't worry about urgency and any of that sort of stuff. That's for you dorks. That's why you guys are a bunch of writers. I'm just a baseball player. Maybe that's the approach that's got him this far in life. Seems to be doing pretty well, and maybe that's the right one for him to take. I don't know. It's another one that I'm sort of I get tired of analyzing all the time. I just think Manny's kind of simple in his own ways and just wants to get into the batter's box and just hit, and he does that Whether he does or doesn't, I think most people will probably still continue to buy his jerseys. But I do look at a bigger picture scenario where I am like, yeah, it would be really nice to see if you could figure this one out here. This year, this one out this year. Hopefully, the results this weekend got you going on the right direction for a couple of day games at Wrigley, John. But, you're sitting back hoping that something is going to take the leap from the end from a series against the Arizona Diamondbacks to a totally different environment that's going to be in Chicago at 12 o'clock coming up on Tuesday. So,
Well, just because you made me look it up because you've referenced it a few different times, Manny Machado has been in the NL Wild Card Series 3 times, all with the San Diego Padres. They have won all 3 of them. I'm sure that's where Manny would like me to stop talking. He's been terrible in all of them. His batting average in the NL Wild Card is 176. His OPS is 612. He has been a really, that's not even really the worst of it, but he's been a pretty bad hitter in the playoffs. He's been almost at his very worst in the NL Wild Card, but his team the Padres tend to win every time they're there. So who knows?
who knows, right? And that's the point. What's the biggest advantage the Padres have? Bullpen? Would we agree on that?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's going to be true in any series they're in. It's their biggest strength, right? Like we talked
Right.
about it.
Pavetta gives you 5 and you go to the bullpen tomorrow.
Yeah. And we'll get into this, I'm sure, later on in the week. I was a little concerned that Randy Vasquez threw like 20 pitches out of the bullpen yesterday. That was a sign to me that Randy Vasquez is probably not in consideration to start any of these postseason games anytime soon. But yeah, they're going to hope that they can win game 1 and game 2 off the strength of, their bullpen for 4 or 5 innings in each one of those.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of secrets here. Padres will probably be. By the way, can I shout out Dylan from Letters to AJ?
Sure.
I hope Dylan doesn't mind. He was listening to the podcast last week with Jared Diamond. And after we were done, remember we had the conversation because Jared Diamond was dazzling us with all sorts of statistics about postseason home runs and how home runs usually translate to deep runs and success. You remember?
Yeah.
And then we wondered aloud, I wonder if Jared Diamond had bothered
with the bunts,
looking up any bunts. Well, guess who heard that and took the initiative to do it?
I love
somebody
Dylan.
Who's written a lot about the Padres bunting this year, and that would be Dylan from Letters to AJ. And Dylan, I hope you don't mind me reading this. I heard you ask on the pod the other day how many playoff teams, the teams that sack bunt the most, how they fared since 2015, John. Since 2015, the 10 teams with the most sacrifice bunts in the playoffs have made the World Series 9 times.
Yeah, baby.
Mm-hmm. Cubs were the only outlier eliminated in the NLCS in 2017. And he has a chart that will back this up. You should still read Letters to AJ. I don't think he's written about this yet, but he might. So as much as we were talking about the Padres' Achilles heel being their inability to hit home runs, as evidenced by all of these statistics that we heard last week from Jared Diamond, military jet flying overhead.
Sounds like more than one.
The sack bunt has also proven to be some indicator for postseason success. So Shilty ball, alive and well. Can't wait to see it in action on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Over under on the amount of sack bunts in this series.
Under the second inning of the first game.
No. I was going to give you a number. Over under number of sack bunts in this series by the Padres. I think I would have to put that number at like 5.5. You taking the over?
Well, I think 3-game series. I'm going to take the over.
Right, but you don't know.
I don't know.
You have to go into this knowing it might be a 2-game series. I think I would take the over though.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see one early. Like, that's the thing I want. I kind of, at this point now, this is what it is. This man is not going to change his approach.
You want a Luis Arraez bunt in the first inning? Break
first
the seal.
Inning, have him call for the sacrifice bunt. Absolutely. Tatis gets on sacrifice. And Tatis probably doesn't like it anyway. But that's what I want. First inning of the game, Tatis gets on. I am calling for the sack bunt. So I will say it'll go slightly under. on that one. So I'll go slightly under. But isn't that interesting? I do find that interesting. Now, I don't know, like, what does this mean for the teams that hit a bunch of home runs? And he does. He has a chart here. And, the Nationals in 2019 had 9 sack bunts, and the 2023 Diamondbacks had 9 sack bunts. So Shilty ball, sack Diego might be sacrifice bunting their way all the way to October.
I mean,
and then what would you say? And then what
he-
would people say?
Here's the thing. I always start these with, we give Mike Shildt a lot of criticism, and we do. But one of the things that I say all the time, and I think you do too, and this is not baseball, this is all sports. Coach the team you have. Don't coach the team you wish you had. Coach the team you have. Create your game plan to emphasize the strengths of your team and hide its weaknesses. And if I'm being generous and maybe even just honest, that's what Mike Shilt's doing with all the bunts. He's like, we don't hit enough home runs. We got to find a way to manufacture runs. This is how I know how to manufacture runs. And it has worked enough that they've won 90 games yet again, and they're back in the postseason yet again. Jared was making the point that home runs are much more important in the playoffs because it's hard. The pitching is better, and it's hard to string together a couple hits to score that run. But doesn't mean it's impossible. And for the Padres, a team that is almost dead last in home runs, it would probably still be easier for them to get Tatis on first, find a way to get him to second, get Manny up with a guy in scoring position, than it would be to expect anyone to hit even a solo home run. So sure.
Cubs, it's alarming to look at how many more home runs the Cubs have hit than the Padres.
It's the Cubs. Yes, that is incredibly
And you can say
alarming.
whatever you want to say about Central ballparks and Wrigley Field and wind blowing out and the like, but like, you look at those numbers when you see the side by sides, you're like, yo, I that's a lot more home runs. That's a lot.
They scored 91 more runs than the Padres in 162 games. That's almost like that. That's more than a run every other game, better than the Padres. Can I tell you a stat that blew my hair back this morning? The Cleveland Guardians. By the way, the Houston Astros won 87 games and missed the playoffs. That's kind of incredible. But the Cleveland Guardians stole the AL Central from your Detroit Tigers. They won the division. Do you know what their run differential is? Because it is -6.
Oh,
They went 88-74 and won the division with a -6 run differential over 162 games. I don't know how you do that. I have no idea.
yeah, it's one of those where the anti-analytics community is going to say, "Well, take your run differential," and yeah, there are outliers to this. Nobody's ever saying this sort of stuff is absolute.
Right.
Like, there
Weird
are
stuff
outliers to some of these things from time to time. So, generally speaking, though, it's right there. It's in the vicinity of how it translates to your win-loss record. Even from a couple of years ago when people were talking about it with the Padres back in 2023, it was like, "Oh, take your run differential and shut." And like, no, like there is reason to think maybe you shouldn't pull the plug on this. That things are going to dramatically turn around. It just didn't happen. Yeah, I think you think about it too from a psychological standpoint when you're playing in an elimination series, and and I don't mean to be defending the bunts here, but if you do get runs on the board very early on by hook or by crook, and all of a sudden now the Cubs are going to sit around and think like, how many innings is it going to be until we have to see this Mason Miller? How many innings is it going to be until we have to see Adrian Morejon? How many, they will start doing that math on the home dugout side as well with Craig Counsell.
That's why
So,
the first
it is like
inning-
over the span of 162, it's easy to say like this isn't a strategy. But, and I know it sounds like I'm defending it. I would much rather Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. hit home runs.
Oh yeah, that'd
Just
be
for
fun.
the record.
Yeah.
But I do think when you're playing in this kind of series, and AJ Hinch has told me this, like the playoffs are about shortening games and counting outs. Full stop.
Yeah,
That's what it is. It's about you're shortening games and you're counting outs. And it's the same thing. How many outs until I can go to these guys? And you have to rely on them, and you have to hope that they're going to be good. And the Cubs, I'm sure, feel like their guys are going to be good against some of the best guys that the Padres have. But you are just playing some matchups there, and you're playing some percentages, and you put yourself in the best position to win. And that's one of those things. If you can get a lead, I hate to draw this back to soccer, but one of the problems that SDFC is having right now is finding itself behind in some of these games. If they were able to get the lead, I think that these games go completely the opposite way, not just because it's low scoring, just because it changes the dynamic of the game. And I think you could say the same thing might apply in the playoffs if the Padres are the team that get the lead early. Now, if the Padres find themselves behind, yeah, I don't know. I tend to think maybe they're not as built for the big innings as they have been in previous seasons, but I wouldn't be surprised again to see that sort of stuff a little bit early in these games.
I agree with all that, and the only thing I want to add to it is I hope the Padres have some ideas, or at least are continuing to investigate why their pitchers keep giving up home runs in the first inning.
Right.
It happens like in at least 60% of the games over the last month or so. Doesn't matter who's pitching. Maybe Pavetta's the exception to this, but I don't even know if he is. It just seems like after the first inning, they're always down a run or two. And if you want to shorten the game and count outs, you can't find yourself down early, because then it's more how many outs do we have left to try and catch up? Do we want to pull Pavetta when we're still trying to get, and it's a whole thing. So yes, I hope that they solve at some point soon the why do they keep giving up home runs in the first inning.
All right, we're going to do a proper preview of the Padres and the Cubs, and we're going to be checking in with somebody who's around the Cubs a lot, who hosts a lot of their pre-games and post-game shows. So we will probably save some of those details for a different conversation. John, we got a couple of more minutes here. Do we want anything to wrap on the Padres? Do we want to talk about Mark Grant? 30 years celebrating Mark Grant in the broadcast booth. This was a great moment that happened Saturday night. I did not see it. I was at Snapdragon Stadium, but I did see it on social media when I woke up on Sunday morning, and it was really a very, very touching moment from Padres TV and from the Padres organization to recognize Mark Grant. I know there's been some speculation this year about him, his future. I don't know. I feel like this is the kind of stuff that Mark Grant probably, if there is going to be some form of change for him in his broadcast responsibilities, he probably should be the person that will let everybody know what it is that the future looks like for him. I mean, 30 years is a long time. That's a long time to be doing anything. And I'm not saying that I know anything. I do not. I there's other stuff I feel like I can tiptoe around. To me, reading the tea leaves, it does feel like maybe there's going to be maybe some, just my outsiders, like maybe a little tweaking of the responsibilities in some capacity. Mark's, I've known Mark and done some events with Mark over the years. I know that, home life is very, very important to him. Being around family is certainly something that when you're doing this job for 30 years, maybe hasn't always felt like it's a top priority, even though you get a bunch of months in the off season. But I'm just speculating. I don't know. I just thought it was a very nice tribute, and clearly it meant something to Mark Grant. If you missed it, it's on social media, and I think we can play a couple of seconds of it here. That Mud gets recognized Saturday night at Petco Park. Oh, nope, that's Rory McIlroy telling somebody to go fuck themselves.
Hold on. I pressed play on the right one. Let's try it again.
Maybe I sent you the wrong link.
Nope. No, I must have labeled this wrong. Hold on. It's showing me the right one here.
Well, instead we're going to get Rory down the gallery at Bethpage Black to shut the F up.
Hold on.
Which was pretty funny.
I can always cut this out, I think. All right, so this should be, that's the Rory one. So this should be Mud. And of course,
back at Petco Park, where my partner is being honored right now. 30th season. Voice of the Padres right here, Mark Grant. Outstanding. Some great pictures from over the years in his time here. Well, they got some great family shots.
That's very nice. Very nice. Thank you. I'm very lucky. Very fortunate. Sitting next to you, Don. I didn't expect that. Thank you. Thanks to everyone. It means a lot. That's very, very humbling, and I'm honored. I love the Padres. I wore the uniform. I apologize. I love the brown and gold. I love those guys in the dugout. I love the guys in the clubhouse. I love you, Don. I love the Padre organization from top to bottom. It's part of my life. It's most of my life. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Standing O.
Thank you.
The Friar faithful.
And thanks for all the nice things everybody says about Donnie and I. in the booth. I mean, you're only as successful as the people you're surrounded by, and I am so lucky through the years too. Carlos, thank you. Thank you, Romano. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Love you, Dave. Thank you. Love you. Te amo. So, thank you very
Carlos
much.
Hernandez walks into the booth.
That was awesome.
Thank you to the Padres.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. Like I said, I don't have any insight as to what's going on there. Asked around a little bit because people started noticing Mud was doing some radio games, and I was told, yeah, on contract here, people have some crossover from here to there. I mean, it does, again, just knowing the industry like I do, it does feel like maybe, there's some tweak or some change coming in some capacity. So nothing lasts forever. And again, I would say, just the same way we talked about Preller a little bit earlier, there is another side of this, which isn't always that it is a unilateral decision that we are going to do something here that people are going to perceive as unpopular. Sometimes it's something that the person is party to and recognizes and realizes, I mean, I really appreciated when people said you should continue to do radio, except guess what? Like, I fucking was done doing 20 years of radio. Like, I just didn't really want to do anymore. So, it's not that I didn't want to keep broadcasting, just 3-4 hours every single day was a lot. So, it was time. And this is 30 years traveling for baseball on top of your career. Like, that's a lot, man. That is more than I think people realize.
Yeah,
So.
not to mention, like, Mud has, I think, 3 kids, and if I'm not mistaken, they're all kind of in like college age or past college age part. So, maybe some of them have moved around the country and he wants to go visit them, but he doesn't really get the time outside of the off season or whatever. Yeah, look, if Mud wants to walk away, he can do whatever he wants. And honestly, like, I might be so much of a Mark Grant fan that I come across as defensive for him, but I saw all the comments of this, and I know he said, like, "Hey, thanks for the kind words about me and Don. You're always only as good as the team that's around you." That's a very Mudcat thing to say. But every comment on the video that the Padres put out was, "Love Don and Mud, love Don and Mud. This is the best announcing group in baseball." I saw some people go, I listen to other baseball games and their announcers are boring, but Don and Mud make it fun. And I'm just going to continue to say it over and over again. Mark Grant never gets credit for how great of an analyst he is. He is very entertaining. He's very fun. And more than anything else, he comes across as an honest to God human being, which is really hard to do as a baseball announcer or analyst. And he does all of those things wonderfully, but he's really smart. And he picks up on stuff during games really quickly that other people don't see. And I think he deserves as much credit as he gets for being lovable and kind of an oaf who sometimes goes along with Don's jokes and whatever. He deserves as much credit, if not more, for just being great at being a baseball analyst.
Correct. And again, not to get too personal, but Mud also, I've gotten the chance again to host events with him and such. So he and I had some mutual sponsors over the years. Not claiming to be his best friend, but Mark has, I've met his wife, Mary. She's been a rock in their relationship. 3 kids. One, I don't know where in the pecking order it is, but one of his children is autistic, and I know, that's been something that they have really prioritized in just, so there's, again, I'm not saying this is goodbye. I think we're not going to, Mud's not disappearing. I promise you that.
Thank God.
But, if there is some, a little bit of a reduced role or whatever, I don't know that everybody should feel like that's, that's something that is, just coming down from up high. There's a lot going on, and for Mark in his life, I feel like I know what some of his priorities are. So if that's what he's choosing to spend more time with in the future, then I think everybody should be supportive. As far as the broadcast go, here's the people that you're going to hate starting tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Kevin Brown, Jessica Mendoza, Ben McDonald, and Jesse
I can't
Rogers.
hate Kevin Brown. I can't hate Kevin Brown. Or did you say
I don't know
Kevin Brown?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It's not the Kevin Brown, the pitcher. I forgot there's an announcer named Kevin Brown.
Kevin Brown, Jessica Mendoza, Ben McDonald, and Jesse Rogers. That's who will be hated on social media tomorrow, starting at about 12 noon.
I think I know most of them. They're mostly fine, but yeah, they'll get hated and told that they're biased against the Padres and all of that. Speaking of
And then I'm sure the Cubs fans will say this exact same thing, that, why do they hate the Cubs? Why are they glazing the Padres?
I know. Every fan base feels slighted against. Speaking of, we haven't talked about, I don't think, anything except Padres, and we're almost an hour into this. I feel like we need to, at the very least, talk some San Diego FC, because I have some questions about why the refs hate us, Darren.
Okay. SDFC loses at home. It was fan appreciation night. It was the final regular season home match of 2025 of this inaugural season, and San Jose Earthquakes. You probably could have convinced me that Earthquakes would come in here and walk out with 3 points, but I don't think you could have convinced me ahead of that match that they would come in here and win the game 1-0. These are two of the highest scoring teams in Major League Soccer, and San Jose has allowed. The only teams that have allowed more goals than San Jose, the LA Galaxy and Sporting KC. So I was like, if we're going to lose, we're going to lose 4-3 or something crazy is going to happen, right? Instead, it was 1-0. Fidel Martinez scores on, just a defensive breakdown. SDFC had some opportunities. One of the things I looked up in preparation of this match was that San Jose has allowed a lot of early goals. They allowed some early goals to St. Louis. 2 weekends ago, they allowed early goals 3 and 12 minutes to LAFC, which is just steamrolling teams right now. I thought you can get them early, and you could put them behind the 8 ball, and then you could open up the match. There were some opportunities. Didn't happen. Chucky in the 3rd minute. I'm sorry. You've got to score that. You have got to score that. Whether you chip the keeper or whether you want to dribble around the keeper or whatever he would have done differently there, I think, you got to score in that 3rd minute, and we might be talking about a different result. And then Oni Valakari a little bit later, and then a defensive breakdown. And this is, it's a little bit of a funk that they're in. There's no doubt. They did not score against San Jose. Scored 1 on a defensive mistake from Atlanta the previous week in Atlanta. Against Minnesota, they scored in the 95th minute after trailing 3-0. So the goals aren't exactly pouring in the way they were once upon a time. Still on top in the Western Conference, but not in control at all. As a matter of fact, Vancouver and LAFC. SDFC could win its next 2 games, John, and still finish 3rd in the Western Conference because of the position that LAFC and Vancouver have put themselves in with extra games. Now, that's not going to be easy for them because they do have to play more games in a short amount of time. Disappointing. A great crowd, almost 30,000 people. Saturday night, crowd was really into it. Yes, you're missing a couple of players due to injury. Yes, you're missing a couple of players due to what it was, or the under-20 World Cup. But even still, I know people are pointing out the whole Milan Alaski thing, which I think is fair. I do think though, converting the chances that you're given in this game and in previous games, that's been a little bit more of a concern for me. Some of these guys tired. I don't know. Anders Dreyer, great example. He's played more minutes here this season than he's ever played before. Is he getting some tired legs at the end of the year? I don't know how to evaluate that. They put all the telemetry, all the things on him to monitor his sort of stuff. The refereeing felt like it was wonky. There's no doubt about it, but I don't think, for me, it was the biggest concern. I think not converting chances and making some simple mistakes was probably a bigger deal and more a factor in losing your home regular season finale.
Agreed with all of that. I wrote in the recap, did kind of the same math you did, that they've scored 4 goals in their last 5 games, winless in the month of September. 4 goals also, yes, hilariously, the number of goals that Milan Alaski scored in 1 game. It felt like, I'm starting to get the feeling that refs might have an issue with the way that Chucky plays.
Interesting. Yes, I think that this was the topic.
I think he's starting to get a little bit of a reputation as a flopper, someone who gets the ball, looks for contact, and falls. And it looked like the ref maybe came into this game going, when Chucky gets the ball and falls, I'm not calling that. And as a matter of fact, when anyone on SDFC gets the ball and falls, I'm going to be suspicious of it being real contact or a real foul. And that didn't seem to go both ways. And that was a little unfair. But I do think like the Milan Alaski Marcus Ingvarsson thing is the same thing. And no offense meant to Amal Pellegrino, who I think is pretty good. I don't think he fits right now, either because he has not had enough time in that spot and with these guys to build chemistry. But every game, it seems like there's 2 or 3 times that like Dreyer puts a ball somewhere for him and he goes the other direction. And like, I haven't seen Dreyer frustrated until the last few weeks. And his frustration is always like, damn it, man. Like I set you up perfectly, except you went left instead of right. And it's always Pellegrino. And like, I just feel bad. The guy just got here like a couple weeks ago and he's being asked to kind of not be the focal point of the offense, but to be like a really important part of their goal scoring. And I just don't think he's up for it, but I don't think they have a lot of other options to replace him at the moment. The offense thing is just, it's very frustrating. And I don't think it's tired legs from Anders, and I don't think it's tired legs from Chucky. I think Chucky's getting a reputation as a flopper, and I think Pellegrino, the defense as of right now, and Adrian commented on this, he's like, they're not really paying any attention to Pellegrino. They're not afraid of him. They're just like, hey, we'll shut down Anders, we'll shut down Chucky. Good luck scoring goals. And that's working right now. So SDFC is going to have to try something else, whether that's someone else in that spot or different ways of creating opportunities. But yes, I always feel bad when I say this team missed an opportunity because it's hard, man. You only get a certain amount per game, right? But the Chucky one that's an easy goal. The Valakari one that's an easy goal.
Yeah.
Like those were just brain farts, really. And that sucks to know that both of those were there and just not completed. But yeah, disappointing. Feels like the team's losing steam a little bit. And I hope they find something to rally around before the start of the playoffs to make themselves feel better and not feel like it's been a downward slide for the last, 2 months heading into it.
Well, the good news is you're going to Houston. Houston's been one of the worst teams in the Western Conference in terms of results. So you'd feel good about.
They tortured us. They tortured San Diego FC. I hated that game more than any of the other ones.
Yeah, and that's really the one that sort of started the downward trend at home at Snapdragon Stadium, which Anders Dreyer admitted to afterwards. He's like, we know we have not won here in a couple of months.
Yeah.
We talked about it inside of the dressing room. So they are aware of it. And that's the thing. I don't know that that's a good thing. I would rather they be like Manny and be like, what? I don't know. We're not paying attention to this.
Yeah.
Even if it's not true, other than to admit, like, maybe there's a little something going on at home here. Like the playoffs, like now you start thinking about the playoffs and hosting a home playoff game and it's a best of 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you start it at home or do you start it on the road? Like what's in the best case scenario for SDFC?
It's a best of 3?
The first round is in the MLS playoffs, the Audi 2025 MLS Cup playoffs.
I figured that they would just do the home and total the scores.
No, it's I don't know.
Kind of interesting though. 3-game playoff.
Yeah, you might. I mean, I guess you start at home, then you play there, and then you play back at home, if I remember correctly.
Sure.
Don't hold me to that, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, I really wanted them to win and set these 2 records at home and feel good about themselves at Snapdragon Stadium, which now, again, afterwards, if you want to read between the lines, they're probably thinking, what's the deal here? Like, well, this doesn't make any sense. I just think, listen, it's easy to point out the guy who was added so late and say that Pellegrino, Pellegrino is what he is. He's not fast. He doesn't have any pace. I'm not sure that he's, he's not a burner out there. But, if you're Chucky, like Fidel Martinez went out there and he was given an opportunity and he took the advantage of the opportunity and he scored the goal that ended up being the difference maker. I think.
Wait, wasn't it
Chucky
Joseph
Lozano?
Martinez?
Joseph Martinez, yeah.
Joseph Martinez.
Did I say Fidel?
You said
I'm sorry. Fidel Martinez was a player who played for Club Tijuana a long time ago.
Oh, sorry.
I got Cholos on the mind since they played last night. So, Joseph Martinez, who's a legend. Like, he's a legend in Major League Soccer. This guy has like literally put together one of the all-time great seasons ever. 2018 MVP Golden Boot, All-Star MVP, MLS Cup MVP. Like, he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
And he's just not going to miss. But, like, you got to feel that way about Chucky. Like, you can't miss that one. And he's on 9 goals, which for everybody talks about Milan Olaski, who did it in 400 minutes or whatever. Chucky's on 9. You're the highest paid player. You have one of the highest selling jerseys. You're not just being brought in here to be a marketing icon. You're being brought in here you're being brought in here to convert those chances when the team really needs you. And he's not, I'm not saying he's been bad. He's been a good player, been an all-star player. But I do think you're right. You can sense the frustration. I mean, he went to ground a lot, and he looked at the referee, and they were getting very frustrated, and he ended up getting subbed off at the end of this game for David Vasquez. So I think they'll be okay. I do think that they're going to be okay. But,
I think so too.
It's just little things here or there. All right. I got to get wrapped here. We will share our thoughts on the Ryder Cup coming up on a different podcast.
Should we do 2 seconds on the San Diego State Aztecs? Because I can do 2 seconds on the Aztecs.
Go for it.
Great defense, terrible quarterback.
Yeah,
Both of them.
exactly what everybody thought Sean Lewis was being brought in here to do.
It's he in his post-game press conference, he said, "I hope Rocky Long was proud." Like, it's not Rocky Long's team. What are you doing? Yeah, it's both the quarterbacks are awful, and they just can't get the offense going with either one of them. And the defense is great, though.
Well, a win is a win, is what I was told on Saturday.
A win is a win, Darren. A win is a win.
A win is a win. A 6-3 win at Northern Illinois is a win. There is no doubt about that one. All right. Again, stay tuned. Thank you all. Section1904.com. That's where you can find out more information. We will have much more coming up this week than we normally put out on a regular work week. I got to get recording Behind the Flow, the SDFC podcast. So I will do that here on this Monday. That'll be out on Thursday. John and I will be back with a couple of more episodes of Section 1904 in the next couple of days. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Darren.